So recently I was on eBay and I just happened to see one of these Super Nintendo Classic systems. And I remember when these came out a few years ago and I was interested in buying one, but I just never did. So when I saw this one and I saw that it had 700 and something odd games, all of the Super Nintendo games that were released in North America, I had to get it. So I'm going to open this up and take a look at it and see what it's all about. Now I have watched some videos on YouTube after I already ordered this one, and I saw that there are fake systems out there. So right off the bat, I have a problem because I'm looking at the graphics on the box, and the videos that I watched that talked about the fake ones said that these lines on the box up in the upper corner here are very faint, as they are on this box. They're supposed to be gray lines going across the box, and they're just very faint. So the serial number starts with SU, which I saw the actual serial numbers do start with SU. But even so, just going off of other stuff on the box, I'm already concerned that this is a fake knockoff. So here's a note from the seller, and as you can see, it says you have bought a modified version of the Super Nintendo Classic Mini with over 780 game titles. So that's great and all, but I don't know, like I said, if this is a fake, you know, what it's going to be like. So okay, so now I see that the cables are not wrapped in plastic, which is a telltale sign from what I've seen, and the end pieces for these cables for the controllers are black and the originals are a gray, and this Nintendo is kind of just been stamped on here with ink, and the original ones have Nintendo actually engraved into the plastic. So at this point I'm pretty sure this is a fake. And this is obviously a fake now because I can see the dark gray part of the controller is very dark, and this is definitely a knockoff SNES Classic system. It's not the original system straight from Nintendo. And there again you have these telltale signs. You can see the controller port areas. The plastic is very shallow, and you can see the reset is actually crooked. It's printed on the little piece. It's crooked. So this is very disappointing. And you can see the case is all crooked. It's just very poor quality. I mean, I say that. I mean, it does look halfway decent. I mean, it's not like horrible, but it's definitely a fake. And here's the power adapter. The same thing, the videos I watched on the real versus the fake, they said this would be the case. The power adapter will be just some knockoff. Mine is actually printed with Nintendo. The original power adapter is completely different. HDMI cable doesn't say Nintendo. Complete knockoff. But anyway, I'm going to hook it up and we'll just keep going with this video and see what happens with the actual gameplay. So I have it hooked up to just my computer monitor, and this is the initial screen, and there are no games in these other slots, which I would expect there to not be, but there are of course Super Nintendo games, so that's a plus. At least there are some games on here. Like I said, this is supposed to come with every North American Super Nintendo game. So I'm just going to scroll through and I'm going to check out some Super Nintendo games that I am very, very familiar with. There's a lot of these games I haven't played, and some of these I have not even ever heard of. So I'm going to go to Mortal Kombat, just the first Mortal Kombat for the Super Nintendo. And this menu screen is interesting. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. One thing I was concerned about with the NES, the Super Nintendo Classic in general, and turn the sound on first, is the screen. How does the screen react? Because I know this is connected through HDMI. And of course the original Super Nintendo system was connected through RCA composite cables. So I'm not going to like this if the screen is all stretched out, but that's exactly what I'm expecting. There are options here, as you can see, for the screen. And I kind of understand what they mean a little bit, but let's see what happens when the game actually starts up. So obviously the the image is definitely stretched, but you can't really see through this footage, but it actually looks pretty good. The colors are a little messed up in this footage, but so far, I mean, I know this is just the start of the test for this thing, but so far it doesn't look bad other than the stretching. Okay, so I'm just trying out the save feature for this system. You just press select and start at the same time on the controller, and it's supposed to save the game at that exact point no matter what you're doing within the game. So right here it says game progress can't be saved, but it did save it anyway. So that's cool. That's a really cool feature. So again, I'm going to go to the screen size, scale, full screen, and original size. So I really want it to be like the game originally was on the original Super Nintendo. So I'm just going to try out these different screen sizes and see if I can get this screen to shrink down. And I'm actually just going to hop into another game to see if the settings are the same, and they are for the screen size. I wasn't expecting there really to be a difference, but again, I know nothing about this system or any of this, so I'm just taking a look. But I'm just going to go back to Mortal Kombat and test out some of the gameplay. And again, I know the graphics probably look pretty crappy through this camera, but they actually look really good in person. And so far, the game, like with the settings, I mean, everything feels okay. It looks okay. This controller is actually pretty good. It doesn't feel bad. I mean, to me, it feels just like an original Super Nintendo controller. And here on the character select screen, everything looks good. The colors look good. The characters look good. Nothing looks weird or out of place. And I was just trying to do some adjustments on my monitor there because, like I said, I want to see if I could get the screen down to the original size, the correct aspect ratio. And I was also trying to raise the volume on my monitor, but I couldn't really do much. But hopefully you can still hear the game, and which it also sounds really good. So right here, the game looks really good. I mean, I have to say it does look really good. And it plays the same as I remember it on the Super Nintendo. And I've played a lot of this game on the original Super Nintendo. Of course, I get my ass kicked with Sub-Zero. So honestly, so far, I'm impressed with this system. I mean, you know, it's playing good. It sounds good. I just wish I could get that aspect ratio to be correct. So here I'm going to save the game, and it saved it. So I should be able to go right back to that same exact point I was when I saved the game, and that is a really cool feature. So now I'm going to try another game. I'm just going to jump into Mortal Kombat 2 and check out those settings. I mean, like I said, I expect them to be the same. And I want to keep playing around with the screen size to see, you know, if there's any way possible to get this, the correct aspect ratio. I know you're probably tired of hearing me say that over and over, but to me, that's very important. I mean, you may not care, other people may not care that it's a stretched out image, but I want this to be as close to the original as I can get it. Now I'm going to go into the actual game and see how it plays. And again, the same with the first one. Everything sounds great. It looks great. So far, I mean, it looks like a perfect port of the Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat 2, or emulation of the Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat 2. Gameplay is great. Controller feels great. I have zero complaints so far about this. So again, I'm just going to try the save state, and it works perfectly. So that, again, is very, very cool. Then you can just go right back into the game exactly where you stopped from the last point. I mean, you think about that. That is a really, really cool feature. Now, I'm not used to emulators or playing these old games this way. I always play them on the original systems. So I'm not used to this stuff. So that may be like a normal feature. And you may be thinking, well, of course, that's the way it works. But I don't know that. I've never had that experience. So for me, it's really, really cool how the save feature works on this system. And then the delete feature works for the save function. And again, with this aspect ratio, if I could just get it to look like it does on an old school TV. But again, I'm using my computer monitor, and I mean, using HDMI, with this setup with just an HDMI cable going from this system directly into the monitor, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. But now I'm going to go to another game, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And again, with the screen size, checking it, testing out the different options. And there's that classic Capcom opening jingle for Street Fighter 2. Just really hard to beat these old games. But again, just like with Mortal Kombat, this game looks fantastic. The colors look awesome. Everything looks awesome. It plays great. It sounds great. No complaints. I'm super happy with this. And it's just cool to be sitting here playing. Like, think about this. If this system works out, you have all these games. Every Super Nintendo game. North American Super Nintendo game. I mean, how awesome is that? Secret of Mana, I just saw. Secret of Mana is a game that I played back in the day that I loved. It's an awesome game. They've got so many great games on here. But yeah, a lot of these games I've never played them, and some of them I've never even heard of. Okay, so now we have the first problem, though. I knew there would be a problem somewhere. Well, I was hoping there wouldn't be, but I just thought, I'm sure I'm going to run into some kind of issue. And the first issue that I see is on the system, I do not see Super Metroid. It's not here in the list. So if you're looking at this system, keep that in mind. Now, for me, it's not that big of a deal because I do have an original Super Metroid cartridge that I play regularly, but it does suck that it's not included on this system. And it may be missing other games, I don't know, but from what I can see, it still has a ton of games. So even if it's missing a few, to me to have all this, that's fine. I mean, I could play these games. I could probably just play this system the rest of my life and not even finish all these games. And here, I'm just scrolling through the whole entire list of games so you can see everything that's there. Now, I have not compared this list with, the full list of Super Nintendo games that were released in North America. So like I said, some may be missing, but you have to admit that is a very impressive list of games on this tiny little device. I mean, to me, it's amazing. I mean, just look at all these games. That is insane. There's so many games. I'm gonna if I end up keeping this system, and at this point it looks like that's gonna happen, I mean, I'm gonna have a blast just going back and playing through so many of these titles. And I paid $140 for this system. So I paid $140 and I have all these games. I mean, you cannot beat that. But we're still early into this video. I still want to do some more testing. I'm still not sure if I'm going to keep it. And some of that will depend on whether or not I can run this on my old school CRT TV, because that's the way I like to play these games. That's the way they should be played, in my opinion. So luckily, I was able to get this HDMI adapter and the power cable that I need to run it shipped to me the very next day, so I can quickly test this. I'll leave a link in the description of this video for these adapters in case they do work. So this is the adapter that I ordered, and I'm really hoping this will work and make these old classic games look like they should on my old school CRT TV. This is my main TV I use for Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, all the old systems. Okay, it doesn't look like it's going to do anything, and I don't know why. Okay, there it comes. There's the the initial menu that you saw earlier, and it looks pretty crappy on this old school TV, but trust me, it's completely fine. It's usable. And filming an old TV like this, I'm just using my phone camera, so it's not going to look as good to you as it would if you were in front of the TV looking at the TV. I mean, it's fine. I'm really, I'm not really concerned about the menu. I just want the games to look good on this TV. So I'm just going to try the full screen option first. Hopefully it'll fill out this old TV. And so far, I'll tell you this, it looks way better than it did on that monitor. I mean, these old games need old school televisions. That's my opinion. And I think while we can still get these old TVs, they should be in use, and it looks fantastic. Well, I'm going to do some tests, and we're going to compare some stuff in a little bit, but so far, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted. It's not all weird. The image isn't all weird. It's perfect. It looks great. Somebody might argue that, well, no, it's not perfect, blah, blah, blah. To me, this is perfect. It's good enough. So just going to check again, play around with the screen size just to see if there's any difference. And so far, there's no difference. It doesn't matter what setting it is. I guess that's the way it works with this system. I mean, it's just going to look how it looks on whatever you hook it up to. But I'm just happy that on this nice old CRT television, it looks as good as it does. And here's the last option, scale. And again, Mortal Kombat looks fantastic. It looks way better on this TV than it does on the monitor, which it should. And the screen is nice and full and fills up the TV. I mean, it just looks awesome. Yeah, I, at this point, am pretty sure that this system is staying in the collection, but we're going to do a few more tests, and I'm going to see to make sure, because it is a knockoff. But so far, I don't care because the controller feels great, the gameplay is great, the colors, the sound, the image, everything is great. I mean, it just is. It's just really good. And you can't beat playing old school Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat. I'm sorry. You just can't. And then when you have people over, they love it. People come over, this is what they want to play. They don't want to play the new PlayStation 5 or whatever. They want to play, they see the Super Nintendo sitting there, they see the Nintendo 64 sitting there. That's what they want to play. So here, I'm just going to give a different view of the television. And again, I know that it's going to look different in a video that's filmed through a phone camera than it does in real life. And in real life, there's no issue. There's no washout with the colors. The graphics are crisp. I mean, it looks like it should. This looks like Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo, just like it did 30 years ago from the time I'm filming this video. And again, with the gameplay, it's fantastic. These controllers are great. I was seeing these reviews where people were comparing the real Super Nintendo Classic Mini to the fake ones, just like I have a fake one. And they were saying that the controller wasn't that great. And to me, it feels fantastic. I mean, you're not going to if you hand this controller to someone and then hand them a real Super Nintendo controller, there is no way they're going to know the difference. I guarantee that. And if somebody knows the difference, then they must play Super Nintendo like constantly or something, because I cannot tell the difference. And I have a real Super Nintendo right here in front of me. And speaking of that, here is the actual Super Nintendo. So this is the actual Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat, and I'm going to see if I can notice any differences playing these back to back. And I'll tell you in a little bit why I'm choosing, of all games, Mortal Kombat. You might be saying, why are you playing Mortal Kombat? Why? But I'll show you why I'm choosing Mortal Kombat in a little bit. But right now, we're going to test the Super Nintendo version. And so far I can tell you, to my eyes and ears and my fingers playing using the original Super Nintendo controller, I don't notice a difference. So here they are right next to each other, and see if you can tell the difference. Which one of these is the Super Nintendo Classic and which one is the original Super Nintendo? Because I can tell you right now that, and I've just played both of these, I would not be able to tell the difference just unless I compared them directly side by side. And I guarantee you other people would not either. They would have to see them side by side to even notice the differences. They play exactly the same, they sound the same. The only difference is the graphics on the Super Nintendo Classic are a little more blurry. And you can really see that with the text right here. You see Flawless Victory on the left. That's the Super Nintendo Classic. And on the right is the original Super Nintendo. You can see how the text on the original Super Nintendo is more crisp and clear. That is the only difference. Just slightly better graphics and images on the original Super Nintendo. Again, not enough for it to matter to me. And most people, I bet anyone who comes to play this system is never going to say, well, I remember playing the original Super Nintendo and the graphics are better. That ain't going to happen. You're not going to be able to tell the difference unless you compare them directly next to each other. So far, I am thoroughly impressed. And now, one thing I want to say, though, it's very important, is you have to keep in mind that I have obviously not played any of these games all the way through. So I can't say for sure there won't be any issues. But having said that, the games I have played a bit are good enough to me. And going off of that, I have decided to keep this system, especially since it has the save feature and all these games. I mean, there's no reason for me to not keep this system. And the reason that I chose Mortal Kombat is because I love Mortal Kombat. I actually own an arcade 1-up Mortal Kombat 2 Deluxe machine. So I have been playing a lot of the original Mortal Kombat lately, both just against the computer and against people online. So I'm very, very familiar with how the game plays. I'm not relying on memories from 30 years ago. I mean, I have been playing this regularly. That's why I chose Mortal Kombat for this test. And I can tell you again that this Super Nintendo Classic is awesome. The gameplay is awesome. The emulation is superb, in my opinion. So, like I said, this is definitely going into the collection. And remember to check out the video description for the equipment I use to make this system work on an old school CRT television, which is how these old systems should be played. You get this thing and you hook it up to an old CRT, you're going to have who knows how many hours of fun playing these old games. And it's especially cool when you have people over and they're going to really love it as well. But it needs to be on an old school television. They won't last forever. While they're around, we should use them, enjoy them, and they're out there. Go get one. Check the description for the equipment that'll make it work. And since I'm happy with this system and I'm going to keep it, I figured I would go ahead and tell you where I got it from. And I got this on eBay, and here's the actual page, and here's the item link URL, and here's the seller's information. So go there. I don't know if the seller will have any more available or when they will. They've sold several of these systems I saw, but you can maybe contact them and ask them if they're going to have any more, because again, I definitely recommend this system.